The video discusses 10 dark facts about the Korean War that are not commonly taught in schools. The Korean War is often referred to as the Forgotten War, as it is not widely discussed in American history. Despite lasting for 3 years and resulting in the death of over 34,000 American soldiers, it was overshadowed by World War II and the Vietnam War. Some of the dark facts discussed in the video include the use of biological weapons, civilian massacres, and the involvement of the Soviet Union and China in the war. The video sheds light on the lesser-known aspects of the Korean War and encourages viewers to learn more about this important chapter in history. Another dark fact discussed in the video is that 20% of the population of North Korea died during the war. The United States authorized an intense bombing campaign that resulted in the dropping of 635,000 tons of bombs and 32,557 tons of napalm on North Korea. The goal was to destroy all the industry and cities in North Korea and leave the country a desert. The bombings destroyed millions of homes and caused millions of civilian deaths, leaving North Korea with no chance of resupplying itself, setting up industries, or growing farms. The psychological damage caused by the bombings has lasted for generations, with the North Korean government still instilling fear in the population with the memory of the American attacks. The video also discusses the fact that during the Korean War, General Douglas MacArthur, who was named commander of United Nations forces, considered using atomic bombs to end the war and prevent China from getting more involved. The plan was to drop atomic bombs on China and North Korea, which would have changed history, and China might not be a major global power today. However, President Truman opposed this idea, believing it would set a dangerous precedent, and was unwilling to risk a full-scale war with China. Truman relieved MacArthur of his command in April 1951. While MacArthur's actions during the Korean War were controversial, his aggressive tactics helped to turn the tide of the war in favor of the UN forces. The video goes on to mention that the bombing during the Korean War was so intense that it only stopped when there was nothing left to destroy. Whole villages were destroyed, and civilians were often killed. Nearly all North Korean buildings were destroyed during the war, and the country has since struggled to rebuild its cities. The process has been slow and difficult due to a lack of resources and international sanctions. The destruction caused by the war had a long-lasting impact on the North Korean economy and infrastructure. The video then highlights that during the Korean War, South Korea killed all suspected communists. This occurred after a group of North Korean soldiers crossed the 38th parallel and attacked South Korea, leading to the formation of a paramilitary group composed of right-wing extremists that conducted a series of mass executions. Approximately 100,000 people in South Korea suspected of supporting the Communist North were killed, including innocent civilians who had no connection to the North Korean regime but were believed to support North Korean troops when they invaded South Korea. The massacre was a pivotal moment in the Korean War and remains one of the most brutal episodes in recent history. The video also mentions that the US was involved in some massacres against North Korean civilians. When North Korea seized Seoul, it was a communist city. Up until the United States began bombing the North Korean army, it was still ruled by communist forces. Just a few months later, the city was retaken by United Nations forces following a successful counterattack. However, the people of Seoul were left with an indelible image by this. The entire peninsula would have been under communist rule without American assistance, and even Seoul would have fallen under Pyongyang's easy control. Many people believe that the signing of the Armistice Agreement in 1953 signaled the end of the Korean War. The conflict isn't technically over, though. The conflict came to a deadlock with no apparent victor. There was no formal peace treaty signed. The armistice merely put an end to the hostilities. North and South Korea are therefore still technically at war. Additionally, American forces are still present in South Korea as a deterrence to further North Korean aggression. The situation on the Korean peninsula is still volatile, and any minor incident could lead to new violence, even though it is doubtful that full-scale hostilities will resume. The Korean War will remain a part of our world as long as a peace treaty has not been reached. Frostbite posed a serious risk to Korean War soldiers. Wintertime temperatures in Korea may drop well below freezing, and soldiers were frequently ill-prepared to handle the chilly conditions. Numerous occurrences of frostbite occurred as a result of the extreme cold and inadequate clothing, especially among people who were injured or had to spend a lot of time outside. Soldiers who had frostbite in certain instances needed to be removed from the front line. Others could not be saved without an amputation. In the end, 30,000 people suffered severe injuries or disabilities. Due to the bitter cold on the Korean peninsula, some soldiers lost fingers, toes, or even entire limbs. China, the United States, as well as several other nations from all continents, including Australia, Belgium, Canada, Colombia, Ethiopia, France, Greece, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, the Philippines, South Africa, Thailand, Turkey, and the United Kingdom, quickly escalated the Korean War into a full-scale global conflict. Despite the fact that the battle was extremely bloody, the Communists continued to advance despite all the outside assistance. Without accounting for the millions of people that died in North Korea over the 3 years of fighting, the United Nations suffered a loss of around 40,000 soldiers. Kim Jong-un's grandpa was Kim Il-sung. He portrayed himself through propaganda as a brave leader who was defending the nation from the assault of the United States and its allies. Based on the animosity the conflict caused among the North Korean populace, he ended up being the founding father of North Korea. Everyone in North Korea suffered a loved one's death. The conflict caused them to lose their homes and way of life, which allowed a charismatic leader like Kim Il-sung to build his own dynasty. Additionally, Kim Il-sung used the conflict as justification to eliminate his rivals and strengthen his hold on power. It was a proxy conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, as well as a conflict between South Korea and North Korea. And this little war would usher in the Cold War, which lasted for decades. The Soviet Union backed North Korea, while the United States backed South Korea. Although the Soviet Union played a stronger logistical role and supplied weaponry to impede American actions, both states participated in the conflict. The goal of this war for the Soviet Union was to keep the United States involved in conflicts to stop another European war that would directly endanger the Soviet Union. For more similar videos, remember to subscribe and like our channel. This way you can support our channel. Thank you and goodbye.